Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Under Construction. This is episode number 69. Alright. And I'm your host, Quagmire, otherwise known as Train Man. Today, we're going to start off with... Sorry, I forget that I don't have to launch in anything. You know, with me I have blah, 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 blah. So first things first, we're going to look at what I've done here. I changed the orientation of a couple things, and I have a couple of ideas. But mostly, I added a lot of the track work in here and figured out where the buildings and some of the roads are going to be. And this is it. I don't know where I'm going to put this power plant yet, but it's going to be up there somewhere. This area is pretty much sorted. I'm pretty happy with how this looks. I'm probably going to build another road that crosses here and does that. But I'm pretty happy with how this looks, how it's come out so far. The switching is interesting and different and complex, but that's the way it is, and I'm actually quite happy with that. The problem is going to be, of course, programming it, but we'll get to that sooner or later. So, yeah, here we are. We've got the track layout for this side of the river. This is mostly non-textile stuff. This is a textile mill. But the textile mills otherwise are going to be mostly on this side of the river. But we'll come back to that maybe later in the episode. If I recall, yeah, I did do the road network on camera for Doe Cliff in here. The other thing I've done is I've updated the train schedules a little bit, the program trains. Now, we're not going to work on that today, but I am going to go through the pains to make a Sunday driving. I say that like it's difficult, but I would like to make a Sunday driving this recording cycle, this week, for this set of weeks, I suppose. And ideally, I'll be able to pull that off this weekend. Thankfully, I don't have too much going on, or really anything going on. But anyway, because this is being filmed on Thanksgiving, I know it's going to come out a little later, but it is being filmed on Thanksgiving, so happy Thanksgiving to everybody. Even those outside of the U.S., you know, it's always good to take a moment and think about what you're thankful for, what you've got. For example, the World Wide Web, where you can look at countless and, countless amazing videos, hours upon hours of video, limitless possibilities, and yet you're here watching me, so I'm thankful for that. Anyway, this is some other area I've done work on. You notice there are a whole lot of these little green things that sort of look like oversized broccoli. We added those off camera, and by we I mean me, because you guys weren't here because it was off camera. So, yeah, we've got trees now in most of the areas that we're going to need trees, including along the shoreline. So, that's really good. That means we can move on from the trees part and onto, well, other parts. It also means that this area has had scenery for a little while, but I haven't, driven any trains through it, and I did the other day, and God, it looks good. It's not stupendous, it's not particularly unusually good, but I do like the way it came out, so there is that. Anyway, now that we've burned enough time, I'm going to make sure we are on route layer, and we're going to continue with what we were up to. Now, mostly, it's going to be texturing around here, including some of the little extra bits we didn't finish, like down here, or that I didn't finish while I was on my own. And those are the biggest deals for right now, because it is Thanksgiving. I did have that deadline. I am getting scenery up to the edge of the swamp, and it's mostly there. It's just not completely contiguous. That's the real difficult part. But I did fill in some other areas with trees, so we have made some pretty decent progress lately. Including while I was on my own. The other thing is getting all that stuff done for the area up there is also a pretty big deal. So for Mason Valley, not Masons. Masons is Mason's Landing because it's named after a person. Mason Valley is named after the organization. And yeah, that's a not insignificant deal. Getting all that done, getting that track work done. I apologize for not doing it on camera, but I was kind of on a roll. I just I just did it. I just got it done. I got it out of the way. Programming it is going to be another matter entirely. Although that is the next set of switching that I'm really going to be able to program. There are two sets of switching that are pretty much on the docket to be programmed. Those are Mason Valley. You know, now that we have some of the track work done, I can start figuring that part out. And the other one is some work around Olive Yard and, by extension, the Olive Branch. So that is going to be a hurdle, because part of the switching around the Olive Branch is really going to have to do with, you know, what has to be shipped where, and it's going to be, what's the word? It's going to evolve over time, what has to be done, and I don't want it to, but it's going to, because no matter what I do, there will be things in the route that I haven't totally thought through, and that will need to be changed, or things that I, you know, willingly haven't thought through, and will need to be created. Now, a lot of those are like, okay, what are these industries in Mason's Landing, or Mason Valley? Mason's Landing, I've got it pretty much all sorted out. But one of the things that's going to go on there that I need to add is going to be a, whoops, I don't want to change the texture scale, is going to be a, well, actually, this isn't really for trains, but it's going to be loading stuff onto barges. I do need to build that over there. If I build a branch line out of Mason's Landing, then maybe that'll be something. But there is going to be an operation that's going to be running on the other side of, a branch line out of Mason Valley, I mean. There is going to be an operation that's running on the other side of the shore from the current construction in Mason's Landing, and I do mean that. Which is going to be loading mostly aggregate onto barges. And that stuff is going to be quarried up in the hills, and it's going to be brought down via the twin branch lines. That's going to be a fun turn to run. And we'll be building that eventually. That's going to be the kind of thing where it's going to be some time before that comes to fruition. But it's something that I was thinking about, and it's something that we're going to build once we get there. Now, we are, I won't say close, because we do have a lot to do, but we are, in a way, deviously close, or deceptively close, to moving on to the next section. And yes, it will take some other time, and there is a lot of work that has to be done in Mason Valley, and the more I think about it, the bigger that town gets. And I apologize in advance for this, but there will likely be some housing developments that will have to be built in Mason Valley. Now, not many. Mason Valley is intensely industrial, and not many people live there. The area had a small economic presence, but the fact that it can be accessed by boat, a small residential presence, but the fact that it can be easily accessed by boat, and has been, accessed by boat for pretty much all of history, means that it didn't grow up isolated, and therefore you didn't have to have necessarily an isolated worker population. So a lot of people that work in Mason Valley come in one way or another, be that by train or by trolley, which is why the trolley came into existence, to try and compete with the railroad, because the consumer base was there, or by automobile at this point in time. There are no longer ferry boats on the river. There haven't been for years. It just wasn't, it wasn't something that they could do. Now, the other thing is, the place where there probably would be a ferry boat is to cross the river itself. And I haven't thought about that, but that is something that I'm going to have to think about. So, if we look at, let me go over here for a second now that this is on my mind. If we look at this area right here, there are not too many areas where somebody's going to build a road bridge across here. Certainly not. The only place that I can think of would be like right here, and you'd cross over the tracks, and you'd come across via that island to here. But this area is not going to be particularly well developed. Who's calling me? Why am I getting a phone call? No, I can't answer that. Sorry about that. So the only other thought is if you build it, upriver somewhere, and that crossing already exists. It's right here. So it's entirely possible that what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a road go this way, and eventually come out over there somewhere. Whereas this is pretty much going to go on its own. And I haven't worked on a road network down here, but the area is pretty shallow over here. There aren't too many places where you could put a ferry dock to cross the river. And that's why you'd see this side grew up the way it did. But this side, it's only going to have some industrial stuff and then mostly farmland. And the shore is going to drop away a little bit anyway, although we're going to dive deeper and we're going to continue at sort of this angle. You guys know how it is. We're going to move farther in on the peninsula, and the reason for that is twofold. One, because it sort of makes sense, and two, because the peninsula has to be wide. And as the map shows, I believe, it shows it at the beginning of every episode, but I can't quite recall. The south edge of the peninsula is much straighter than the north edge. And so we need to make a not straight edge. We need to make an edge that kind of curves in a little or a lot. So, we've got our work cut out for us in that regard. But we shall see how it ends up looking. Give me that. And how it ends up turning out. So, but I want to be traveling a little bit more off cardinal. We've currently been traveling pretty much, give or take. We've been traveling due west. Sorry, I couldn't visualize it for a second. It just wasn't working in my head. But we've been traveling pretty much due west with our main lines here. Both of them, really. And it's time to change that. It's time to move to more of a southwest direction. At least for a little while, so that we can get away from the coast. Because, hey, I'm kind of done with the coast. And I'm going to have it there, but not to the extent that it's previously been there. If you get what I mean. I wanted to be... So, okay. Originally, I wanted there to be a way to drive a boat all the way around the edge of the peninsula. And that is still my goal. But, I'm not sure about where I want to put the coastline and how much coastline I really want, all things considered. So, it gives me pause. It makes me sort of question, okay, do I really want to do that? And yeah, I do. It's something that'd be really cool. And I don't want to take away from that. I don't want to have a gap in our hypothetical boat system. But at the same time, I don't want to be going through tons of extra work for something that doesn't matter all that much. It's just boats. This is a train simulator. But I do want to be able to drive those ships. So, yeah. I don't know. I'm going to have to think more about how that works, how that's going to make sense, where I'm going to put this coastline. Because I want to be... So, each tile is about half a mile long. I want to be about a mile from the coast up here. So that means it's going to be 2 tiles, and then another tile, and then another tile. So 2 tiles to get to the coast, and then the tile where you're driving the boat, and then another tile where there's just extra water, because water. I might do the easy thing and make the ocean floor flat. I'm not too enthused by the idea of doing that, but I still may, just to sort of alleviate some of the pressure on me to do all that, and to mostly to make it take less time. So, yeah, that's generally what I'm thinking. I know it's kind of lame, and I don't really want to do that, but it's underneath the water. Who's really going to care? So, I don't know. We'll blow up that bridge when we come to it, basically. So, let me get some more texture. Now, it is Thursday night. It is Thanksgiving night. I have returned from dinner. And tomorrow is that day. That day that everyone knows you run in the store with a shield and a sword. And I'm not sure if I'm going to do it. I'm not sure if I'm going to get in there on Black Friday, but I am sure that I'm going to cash in on some of those Black Friday deals. Now, despite what the critics have been saying about Fallout 76, I'm still entertained by the idea of playing it. I still enjoy the idea of going through the post-apocalyptic wasteland with Madison. And, oh, did I mention our anniversary is in less than a week? So, I would love to get it. However, there's one small issue standing in the way of that, and that is the fact that we play on console. And we only have one, and Fallout 76 does not have split screen. So, what is a man to do? Well, how about buying another Xbox? And that might be what I end up doing on these Black Friday sales. If I can find one for a reasonable amount. Preferably an Xbox One X, because I want that graphical fidelity. And I found one that actually came bundled with Battlefield 5. Which I wasn't really considering getting, because frankly I like Battlefield 1 a lot. But eventually I'm probably going to want Battlefield 5 as the population moves over, which most of it probably already has. But, oh, that's right, that's why this area doesn't have grass. Right, that's supposed to be one of those other areas. I haven't logged on to Battlefield 1 in a while. I'm probably going to play after I record this, because I've been itching to, because I've been watching the entirety of The Great War. You know, the great YouTube series. If you haven't heard about it, look it up. If you're interested in history, or, you know, in particular World War I would check it the hell out. It gives a lot of perspective to a lot of things going on in that era, including the Russian Revolution, and the timings of when a lot of these countries got into the war. Now, we like to rag on the French a lot. We're American. We do that. There's cheese-eating surrender monkeys. And the fact of the matter is, the Great War has taught me a whole lot, and I've gained a newfound respect for the French, in World War I, at least. Also, Italy isn't quite the backstabbing traitors that they are in the Second World War either. So, you know, that's the thing. Now, I'd hesitate to say that there are any good guys in the First World War, but nobody's really... Okay, no, actually, I take that back. Wait, how do I say this? Nobody is the bad guy and the good guy. Well, everyone's bad guys. I wouldn't say that there are clear-cut sides in World War I really at all. Everyone, you know, drummed up their propaganda machines, and everyone did a lot of terrible things. I don't know. War is hell. War never changes. This is why I play Fallout. So, anyway, when the bombs drop, I know what to do. Steal a locomotive. Oh, that's the other series? Oh, sorry, my mistake. So, what am I doing in here? Well, I didn't have this area have grass, but really, it probably should. This area also definitely needs me to get rid of these trees. Oh. And probably push this tree line back a little bit. If only so I can get my camera in there and see a little better. And before Mason with the... Oh, make a tree layer. Shut up, Mason. You're a genius with roads, but I don't need any of your sass. Speaking of Mason's genius with roads, he came into the group and gave like this... I'm not going to call it like a heartfelt speech, but it was like an info bomb of what all the abbreviations in the Yarn and Yarnish roads mean. And holy cow, I wish I could have retained like a fifth of that. Because damn, dude, you know some things. I wish I knew that many things. I don't know that many things, just in a general sense, but you know everything. He knows like everything there is to know about roads and trains, which is kind of ridiculous considering the subject matter. But I am still impressed. So if you have any road questions, I would direct them at him. I don't know how to get in touch with him, but you know, if you can find them, if you can fire him, you can if you can fire him. If you can find him, you can hire him. He's sort of like the A-Team, but with roads. And also, he's just one person. But he's really good with roads, guys. This is what I'm getting at. And yeah, no, he's consistently impressive with that sort of thing. Now, I am waiting till the day that Trains Next comes out for real, especially if it does have that multiplayer surveyor that we're all hoping for. Because, oh man, that guy is going to be in charge of so many road projects so fast, he doesn't even know what's going to hit him. And mostly because, so there's an idea floating around for and by an idea floating around, I mean we've all talked about this in the Iron Horsemen, the group, to build a collaborative multiplayer route in the multiplayer surveyor. Now, that makes me excited. For a number of reasons. We've done a couple of sort of like test planning phases, you know, whatever, poking around. We had some ideas. Yada, yada, yada. And some people have started reskinning stuff, as we've talked about in the podcast. Some people have started building stuff. I haven't really done anything because as you know, I'm not a reskinner. I'm not the one that does, like, any of the reskins. All of the ones that have been done for the Temeros Vale of Anaconda. God damn that route. Everything that's been done for the Tolbern Peninsula has been donated to me and done, you know, sort of out of goodwill, and I very much appreciate that. And if you want to get in on that, feel free to contact me because I will be so incredibly helpful for so incredibly grateful for any help of that, of that type. And yeah. But speaking of collaborative routes, so this is a great way to talk about the first comment here. And it was Ryan the Steam Man, and he says, how long did it take you to make the Iron Horseman Railroad route? So far I'm really impressed with the progress and hope that I'd be as good as you someday. Well, thank you, first of all. That's quite flattering. The second, the actual question part, though. How long did it take to make the Iron Horseman route? The answer is quite some time, and arguably it isn't done. There are still plenty of areas that could use some work, but for all intents and purposes, it is done for the time being. All the track work is there, and everything that's going to need to be done in the immediate future is done, because most of the areas that aren't done are areas that would be, featured, or that wouldn't be featured in an episode necessarily, without some sort of contrived reason for them to show up. So yeah. Let me do this. Now, so there's a point in the future where I would love it if, if we finish everything that is planned in the Horsemen, which, God knows if that's ever going to get done, but big if, if that ever gets done, I would like to revisit it before doing anything else, doing anything add-on, like any of the sort of after the series is done, stuff that we've planned. Go in, get that dam, and really make the railroad for real. Make it as to what it's supposed to look like or be like, and play it off, of course, as the railroad, the railroad's different in the future, but really it'd be, this is what the railroad really looked like, or really would have looked like. This is the real Iron Horseman Railroad, as close as you're going to get, as real as you're going to get, to the inhospitable terrain on which the real Iron Horseman Railroad is located. real being real, quote unquote, because the Iron Horseman Railroad, as I've said multiple times before, is not built on any real terrain. It's stuff that we sort of came up with, and we didn't even finalize the location until we had already pretty much long since planned what the route was going to look like. So the idea that, we're in the Pacific Northwest, and this is that, and that's the other thing, we're between, like, Seattle and, I don't know what the next town would be necessarily. We've mentioned it a couple of times. But, in the other direction. The reason, or, the fact that we're there, or that we say we're there, is totally something we sort of contrived after the fact. And we came up with the Iron Horseman before we fit it into a universe, and that was kind of a mistake. But the other thing is, we came up with the Iron Horseman, we broke it down into a series of sections, and then said, okay, you're going to work on this, you're going to work on this, you're going to work on this, you're going to work on this. And the work was split up between Milky, Achilles, Wybold, Jader, TJ, TBA, it was, and Kevon, and probably a couple of other people that I'm missing. I know Mason has done some work. He was going to do like a revamp of it, but I'm not sure how far along he is with that. Mostly just simple stuff, replacing signals and crossing gates and that sort of thing. But anyway, yeah, it came together relatively quickly because of that, and honestly, we got it done in a pretty rapid amount of time. You can see some of the work on this channel if you go back to, I don't know what episodes of the Zombie Train it necessarily was, but it was after I got rid of the Tamaros Vale and Anaconda Railway. We moved on to working on the Iron Horseman, and I built Lee's Line, and that should give you an impression of, how long that took, and then look over the rest of the route, how big it is, and that's how long that took. So, it did take quite some time to nail it all down. Wybold's section in particular, he did a bit, but a lot of it was brought over from an old route of his, which was fairly convenient, because it was, in a way, it was sort of the right shape, and it was the right gauge, of course. And, it worked out. As for Jader, he built a couple of things, one of which was supplanted by, one of which was an old Davenport, which is used in the 90s Davenport scenes, like the modern day, quote-unquote, Davenport. And then that was supplanted by something that Wybold built, which is the Davenport that you see in the 1950s in the series. And, whoops. Yeah. Achilles tried a couple of times at getting the gorge right eventually. Milky did a lot of work on that, and then I did a lot of work on it as well. As well as the towns up there. What else? Yeah, TBA did Wyvern in particular. Kevon did Douglas. I connected them mostly. What else? TJ, of course, did the Strasbourg branch. What else happened? I think Blue Sky was TBA and Jader. I'm trying to remember what's what now. Jader did a lot of the terrain work, and scenery going from Layton down. That was actually done in like record time. And then what else? Yeah, what else? What else was? How did that win? I don't know. But the point is, it took a while, but it would have taken a lot longer if any individual had done it on their own. So it was pretty fortuitous that we had the whole group sort of behind this effort to get this route done. And I think for everything, it came out really well. There are definitely things that I would probably change, of course, aside from the aforementioned desire to make it real, the realistic terrain, which that would be a serious thing to attempt. But, I'm sure it would be potentially feasible. I don't know. But yeah, there's that. And then I don't know. A lot of the track work could have been redone. A lot of it could have just been better terrained. You know, the terraining is kind of hokey in a lot of places, but it was, to the point, one of the largest and most permanent things that any of us had made. You know, I'd made the Temeral's Veil and Anaconda, or, you know, what of it that I had made. But other than that, there really wasn't a whole lot that we had done that was comparable, like anyone in the group. Rival, of course, had made his Copper Mason and Timber Peak, which, like I said, we used wholesale, lock, stock, and barrel. But other than that, we didn't really have a lot of big routes. Although, no, Kevon had his route. That was pretty big, and we commissioned him to do the city because we're like, yeah, you built a lot on your route. Maybe you can try your hand at this. And Douglas came out pretty well, all things considered. But Douglas is very much sort of a caricature of a big city as opposed to a big city, because as I have learned, making a city is a huge and arduous task. Now, I believe you guys have learned that as well. Now, so to give you a hard answer, several months to a couple of years, depending on how you really want to measure it and how you measure the stopping points. And that was a lot of pretty hard labor that went on during those points. Now, what was your name? Ryan the Steam Man. You said, you know, someday you'd like to be like me. Well, keep watching the series, and hopefully you'll pick up a thing or two. Because everything I'm doing in this series, except for maybe the use of terrain tracks, because I haven't used them at all, is something... It are things that I've learned from the construction of the Iron Horseman Railroad. And, you know, some of them might not be directly from there. Some of them might be from, you know, things I've done previously. I learned how to control my grades, you know, coming off of the Temeral's Veil and Anaconda, as well as how to make my switches at least a moderate size. The Iron Horseman Railroad taught me quite a bit about making your track work, you know, sort of make sense. Because we had a lot of things that would go on in that series where, you know, engines would be moving around and doing this or that, and if they couldn't get somewhere, then, you know, then it wouldn't make any sense. One of the things that you can notice is the fact that, and I made this mistake, I made this mistake on the Temeral's Veil and Anaconda Railway, and then again on the Iron Horseman Railway, which is attaching the servicing facilities directly to the roundhouse as they are on both of those routes. And this was a mistake. That is not something you do. Not only because it's kind of unrealistic, but because in the case of the Iron Horseman in particular, Chris and Katie and all them can't get to it. Now, as it goes, they're supposed to be able to get into the roundhouse, but Hank's fiddling with the turntable means that it really can't handle them. And so the conclusion there is that they can't get to fuel and water when they're in Troy, and that's a mistake. That is untrue, because clearly they are running around. So there's something that we're missing there, and the question probably could have been solved. You know, the question need not have been asked if those things had been better designed. So, you know, look at, you know, here's my other tips, and I've said this one plenty. Look around. You know, open your eyes, look up plans, look up maps, look out at things, look at things on Google. There are endless examples to pick from across the US and across the world of, okay, this is what this area in a rail yard really looks like. And this is how it's set up, and this is how the track goes. These are the curve radii. Like, you can measure all that stuff and then replicate it. It doesn't need to be a guessing game. And don't make your construction of a route, if you want to make a really good route, don't turn it into a guessing game. I do a lot of this, but winging it is not necessarily a good thing unless you know all the variables that you're going to be changing. And for the most part I do, which is why I can do it. But when I come to a point where I'm not really sure, then I'm going to be looking stuff up. The creameries I would not have probably done the way they are unless I knew that that's how they were, because they're strangely done. That is kind of a unique setup, and it's because the trains that would run creameries really had to get in and out fast and get all those things done. Sooner or later I'm going to have to build I'm going to have to program the train that runs to the creameries on this map, but the thing is, it is probably going to be the last train that I program. And the reason for that is that the session starts at 6 a.m. I already have a train that's programmed that starts its run at 7 p.m. So, well, it starts its run at 6 p.m. and then it would switch out. It would do its work starting at 7 p.m. So it leaves from, it leaves from Olive and it goes to Mason's Landing and it does work there. And that's, that is the area that I'm referring to, I guess, when I talk about a lot of these late night trains, because the street running in Mason's Landing is closed from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. So that means you cannot operate a good number of the industries from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., which means you have to operate them in the evening or at night. Now, by a number of, I really just mean a couple. But when you're going to do it, you might as well do it in one fell swoop. So, and it's nice. You don't really want to be swapping out cars in the middle of the day, because you might end up putting production on hold by accident if you're a little bit late. So you want to swap out a car during the night. And so that's the way it's going to be. And the other thing is that I'm realizing, because of the way that the metals things are set up, there are cars that are going to be sent from Mason's Landing directly to Mason Valley, which is interesting. Which is not something I was really thinking about or planning on, but that's the way it's going to be. And this is what I was talking about, having an evolving route. It's evolving over time. It's changing shape as I play with it. There are things that are coming out that I didn't think of before, that I never would have thought of, and that now that I'm building, they come to me. And that's kind of a big deal. If you can go with that flow, then you'll probably end up with a better route than otherwise. Obviously, don't lose sight of your vision, whatever it may be. But at the same time, be willing to accept things that come to you that might be even better. For the most part, I don't think that I am taking away from anything by adding everything that I'm adding to Mason's Landing, and Mason Valley, in particular. It's getting bigger. There's a little bit of scope creep going on, but I did want Mason Valley to be a very densely industrial town. And even small towns in this day and age could have a lot of industry, and it's different. That is something that's up in the hills, that they are fueled, primarily by that industry, and not really by much else, again, because they don't have many residents that stay there. They don't have too many people that live there. And honestly, I should probably build more houses in Mason's Landing. When we get to it. Maybe I'll work on that a little bit later today. So, yeah. Okay. I'm just filling in the gaps right now. There are so many little areas that I need to work on, that I need to fill in, that I could go down the row and do them systematically, but alternately, I can just do them as I see them. And eventually, they'll all be done. Because I don't think there are too many that are going to slide under my radar if I'm not paying that much attention. So, I think I'll be fine by just doing this, where I am, skirting along the edge of the highway, fixing things as I notice them, adding grass as it's necessary, that sort of thing. It's very therapeutic. But, in reality, it's just a way to do it without having to think too much. And that's another thing. So I spend, as you guys know, an awful lot of time thinking about this route. And I tend to try to do a lot of that thinking on camera because thinking leads to decisions, and decisions are usually more interesting than laying down infinite splines of grass. But thinking also can be very boring. Because thinking is very much, I'm sitting here, I'm staring at the screen, and that one little cog in my head is turning and turning and turning and turning and grinding and smoking, and you don't even get to see it. But it's there, I assure you. And the fact of the matter is, it takes time to figure out and make those decisions. It takes time to figure out what I really want out of an area. I'm still not sure everything I want out of both of the Mason locations, Mason's Landing and Mason Valley. I don't totally know what I want. I just know that I want something, and I have a general idea. And some people would say that's great, some people would say that's bad. In one school of thought, you want to go into an area knowing what you want to get out of it, so you have a clear goal and you can go for it. But at the same time, along with the don't get too married to your ideas, especially if a better one comes along, the fact that I don't have too much planned means that, sorry, I can't even brain right now. Maybe it's all the Thanksgiving food. The fact that I don't have a plan means that I have plenty of room in said non-existent plan to add anything that I come up with. Do I want a scrap metal dealer? Boom, it's there. Do I want, this, that, or the other? Boom, it's there. It's relatively easy, relatively simple to sort that all out. Also, I'm realizing I need to change one of the consists. So, oh, that's right, because the consist that goes down there is actually a placeholder. Because I don't know what's going on down there. I don't know everything that's going to happen. Excuse me. I want this. I want the Oz gravel. And so we'll put that thicker grass in the middle here. Yeah. So these are areas that are pretty understated, but at the same time, they are pretty damn important for the aesthetic of a route. Never underestimate the amount of drainage ditches that there are, full stop. Whether that be along the side of a railroad, or a road, or between the two, or between two parts of a road, there are drainage ditches everywhere, because if you go to school to design roads, you will learn that drainage is number one. There are all of the design qualifications, the things you go out of your way to build your road to accommodate, whether that be design speed, which is almost always, the number one of that kind of criteria. Design speed, design capacity, and, whatever. Making it less confusing. Straightforwardness. There's definitely something to be said for the amount of straightforwardness in a design. But the other thing is that if you don't have enough drainage, sorry, yawn. If you don't have enough drainage, your road is going to wash away. And I'm sure Tillamook will have has a thing or two to say about that. So, yeah. I need to be one with this. I need to be one with the trains. And I can't see because of that leaf. Alright. Okay. Alright. Okay, alright. Alright, okay. Let's see if I can get that other texture painted up on the wall here. Thank you. Give me this. The other thing, or another note, is about using the right texture for the situation. Now, it's not just about making your fields green, making your cliffs rocky, and making your forests grassy, or making your industrial areas dirty or anything like that. It's not all about that. It's about how you use those textures, which textures you use, and how do you mesh them together. And this, I think, is a really good example of how to set this up, because we're not only basing areas and their textures on, what would be there. This is a cut. It has rock, because when they cut it, or when they made the cut, they exposed the rock. And that makes a lot of sense. But areas like this where, okay, maybe they didn't expose the rock, but they exposed plenty of dirt. Or areas like this where, okay, it's dirt because they piled up dirt to build that embankment. And you have to be conscious of these things when you're designing your route to make it feel right. You can get away with not necessarily going into that much detail, but you do need to do your cut and fills to show that they're cut and fills. To show what's going on. Even the different kinds of grass, it makes a difference. Because we've got one that's the, very much the forest grass. It's much thicker. And then this, which is a little bit more sparse, because it's growing on, sort of a dirtier landscape. Now, underneath the trees, we've also got a grass texture, because it is just very grassy under there. And in the thicker parts of the forest, we use a shrub texture to show that it's not just grass and trees. And admittedly, I would use that pretty much everywhere, but I already started building down here without it. So it's a lot, not only is it a lot of work to go back and do the older parts again, if I wanted to, but if I don't want to, and I just start using it here, that means there's going to be a serious discontinuity in how the terrain looks and how the scenery looks without a real explanation. Right now I can just say that, close to the coast, there isn't as much shrubbery. And, I don't need to necessarily give a reason why, although that would be nice. And it would be nice to have all your reasons for why certain things are the way they are in your route backed by something that you can tie back to real life, or at least some sort of universal constants within your route. Like this, we've got, again, the rock, because these areas were blasted away, or dug, more likely, and they exposed the rock, and, that was recent, relatively speaking, so why would there be dirt? We've got trees, but not very large trees, not very many trees. And then you've got other areas that are pretty much undisturbed forest. So, yeah, you gotta look at this and say, okay, if I were standing in this spot in real life, what would I be surrounded by? What would this look like? How would it be arranged? And like I said, looking at some areas in real life can be a pretty good barometer for that, even if the areas themselves seem unrealistic. There are areas where, I've gone by them in real life, and I've looked out my window, and I've said to myself, If I saw that mountain in trains, I would say, wow, what an ugly and unrealistic mountain. But it's a real thing. You know, you can make the most beautiful and realistic area in trains and have somebody scoff at it and go, well, it doesn't look like that. But if you have something real to point to, then you can go, yes, it does. You know, look at this and look how well this reflects this other real thing. That has to do with mountains, it has to do with forests, it has to do with rivers and lakes and anything like that. You know, I didn't do the best job of building the river over there that heads up to Mason's, or that heads from Mason's Landing to Mason Valley. And I know that. It could be. Huh. Why am I yawning so much? Holy cow. It can be a real trick to get a river to perform the way, not only the way that you want it to perform, because that can be the real difficult part, but in such a way that is realistic. Even now, or even with everything I've done to that river, it is not very realistic. Not only does it go very straight, which is kind of a river no-no, it raises in a very haphazard way that doesn't really indicate flowing. It's just kind of there, and when I got the chance, I raise it up a couple of meters. So, yeah. It's the kind of thing where you've got to keep an eye out for it. You've got to keep an eye to the rest of the world. And see what kind of things match. And see what kind of things you can base your world off of. And don't forget, of course, it is your world. Just because something is a certain way in real life does not mean you have to follow it to the letter. But if you want to do something right, the right way to start it is to look at a real life example. Because if you look at enough of them, you're going to get an idea of how those real life examples go together. You know, what components go where, how many tracks are there, how many switches are there, where the switches go, how are passing tracks set up, or anything like that. You will learn how those things really go together, and once you know that, you can build them however you want, because you will have that set of rules. You will have those guidelines to follow to make sure that every railroad yard or city or whatever that you build comes out looking right. Right enough. Right like a real one. Like it could be a real one, even if it isn't exactly. Because, you don't need to copy exactly what areas look like. I don't intend to copy, really anything. There are some areas that I'm definitely trying to emulate. I looked over Old Saybrook about 50 times while trying to design Mason's Landing, just to see, okay, how are these buildings laid out, and what am I really supposed to do? But for the most part, I went in there and was like, alright, well, I guess this is the way we're doing it. There are things that I missed that I could have done, but I probably should have done earlier in the process, which is the fact that when you're along the coast like that, a lot more of your area is going to be estuary than not. A lot of Old Saybrook but was historically confined to some pretty narrow strips of land because of the fact that the area is very marshy. And it's pretty much not the kind of stuff that you can build upon unless you add a lot of fill and add a lot of dirt or drive a lot of pilings and that sort of thing. So houses were fairly restricted to only a few corridors. That isn't what's happening in Mason's Landing. Not really at all. Houses are strewn about, and the ground there is fairly solid and pretty high up above the water. So that, what I just said isn't really a concern to the residents. You can build your house pretty much wherever. But with the storms and the partitioning of land as is outlined in the history texts, sort of, which Mason's Landing was not immune from, even though it isn't mentioned in, even though it isn't mentioned by name, the area was broken down pretty much into farms again, fairly quickly, and those farms have slowly given away to the sparse road network that it's got going on. And no, I absolutely should be adding more houses down there if Mason Valley, isn't going to have as much, isn't going to have as much residential, which I don't want it to. I don't want to build much more residential, if I'm going to be completely honest. I want it to be a while before I build residential again. But that's a fact of life. Most of any town is going to be residential, and don't forget that part. It's the easiest part to ignore, because it's probably the least interesting part. There's never really a whole lot going on in a residential district. It's just houses and houses and houses and houses. And so if you get bored, don't worry. I got bored building Olive. It's the kind of thing where you got to push through it, and then once you do, you will be satisfied. You'll be happy with that result, with whatever you've built. Ideally, assuming you've built it well enough. There are things in Olive that I don't really like, but I'm not going to change, because, wow, there's no way I'm touching that again unless somebody really asks me to, or really wants me to. Go in and put in the fire hydrants, or stuff like that. Put cars in everyone's driveway. Because I've been there, I've done that. I built the residential section of Olive. I built 2 of them, although one is much, much, much larger than the other. I have done that work, and I don't need to do more of it. At least not right now, which, we will see about Mason's Land, or Mason Valley, when it comes down to it. And how that ends up going, and how it ends up looking. But the first thing I have to do over there is, I need to build some more mountains. Some of the areas there are pretty empty, pretty barren. They're still flat, and I haven't shown any indication of what those areas are really going to end up looking like, and I need to go in and do that. So maybe that's a goal for today. But the thing is, I'm pretty content doing what I'm doing right now, and I don't really feel the need to go back to Mason Valley today. At least not right now. There's some more track work that could use doing. But right now I'm out here, and I'm trying to get this scenery done for this main line and this highway. And the grass is a pretty good barometer for that. So generally, when you design, you're going to want to save this kind of grass, this, not specifically this kind, but this kind of scenery for last. This is your last pass of scenery. And in this pass you get all the little fiddly bits grass, all the smaller textures, all of the the things that go in the houses or in the driveways or on the roadside, that sort of thing. Not things that you would necessarily do when you're getting the big stuff knocked out. The big stuff being things like terrain and figuring out where the forests are and that sort of thing. There are stages to this kind of thing. There's an order to everything. Now this and that, so those both need doing. Not really looking forward to it. Just, I wanted to get this out of the way because I was actually kind of excited to work on it. This area is pretty exciting to me just because of the way that the track and the road line up. It makes me happy. And yeah, I'm just glad it came out the way it did. So now let's paint some grass over this. Uh-oh. Oh, holy cow, we're an hour in already. Let's talk about the other, comment for a little bit. Alright, this is coming along. What's the other comment? Oh, Tristan's Trains. Yes! The bread and milk is very common around my neck of the woods as well when it comes to incoming snow. I'm glad we're not alone out here. I am actually very glad we're not alone out there. But, we're not alone out here. It's just one of those weird things, and like I said, it's the kind of thing, for those who aren't in the loop, last week I talked about getting the bread and milk when the snows are coming, and how that's like sort of a universal thing. It gets passed down from generation to generation. It's not anything that anyone really decides, okay, what we're going to get is bread and milk. You just know. You know to get the bread and milk, because it's what your parents did. It's what their parents did. It's what their parents did. It's what everyone does. And you go to the store and all the bread and milk is being taken off the shelves. And it's like, yeah, I'm going to get the bread and milk. And nobody really stops to think about, well, why bread and milk? And the answer is because. Because that's what we do. It's going to snow and we get the bread and milk. So, yeah. Oh, I love this. I'm loving it. McDonald's, you can sue me all you want. But I'm loving it. Let's just fill this in with this. Is this the same texture as that? No. It's very similar, though. So, let's just fill this in here. Let's put these reeds in here. Now, this area is not going to have trees. Finally connecting these guys, even though they're not totally connected, but connecting the swamp to the rest of the scenery is a huge deal. It really signals, it signals a couple of things. One of them being that this is pretty much the edge, or it's getting close to the edge, of the really dense forest stuff along the coast. For the rest of it, what we're going to be dealing with is a lot of not this. Sorry, brains still. A lot of farmland, a lot of empty space. Not a whole lot going on, but still, things happening, things to go by. And that's why I want a good mile from the shore, because, fact of the matter is, we are going to be, sort of putting stuff in between, or, around us. We're going to be going through these wide open spaces. We're not going to be doing too much, faffing about, along this coastline, wedged between the edge and the coast, that sort of thing. That's done. We're done with that. Once we leave here, we're gonna pull back to like over here, and the coast is gonna stay over here, but we're gonna go like this, probably. Meanwhile, this is probably gonna do the same thing. They're gonna be mostly parallel, although there's gonna be one line that goes off this way. And I'll probably figure that one out as I go. I need to look at the map again, though. And I don't do this often, but I intend to go and look at the map right now. Also, I don't have Google Drive open. That's kind of weird. I don't follow it religiously, but I'd really like to use it as sort of a basic idea while it's running through my head. So, this is the Tollbrand folder. I'm going to go down in here. I'm going to go to Images, and I'm going to go to the Tollbrand map.png. Okay, so yeah, so they both start coming in and they actually get closer, but this is actually probably as close as I want them to get. So what I'm thinking is this will actually go more this way, and eventually across this river, more than likely. Because if you think about it, there's something that wraps all the way around like that, or there was. So, yeah. Okay, back to what we were doing. We're gonna get this done. We're doing it, guys. I'm probably gonna make this all sand, if not some dirt. Yeah, so let's do... So this is my swamp dirt. And I think I'm gonna start spreading this in the bottom here. And spreading some sand a little bit on the edges, but that's probably gonna be it. So we'll fill this in, but this is going to be about where the sand ends. This is what we really need to figure out. These big dividing lines. It feels like such a hurdle to cross to figure out where a certain texture or a certain area is going to end and how you're going to end it. If we go back to Olive, which I'm not going to fly over there right now, but you can see the north end of the residential district is, you know, a fairly hard line, bow chicka bow wow, and it was tough for me to go through and say, alright, we're cutting it right here. And, you know, mostly because it feels like such a big deal, and you don't want to get it wrong. It feels like there's, you know, consequences for getting it wrong. Even though there isn't, it's just going to look weird. The thing is, what doesn't? You know, you have to look at maps. Again, you have to look at the edges of towns and see how it divides and how it ends and how that forest begins. And normally it's very, normally it's not too gradual of a fade. Normally it's like, okay, development ended here. And the reason for that is because that's just how zoning laws work. When you zone an area for residential construction, you zone an area. You don't like make a fuzzy boundary and say, yeah, to about here. You know, you might, you know, build some houses just after here and leave some patches of forest just before here. You say, okay, you can build in this area. And everything outside of that area is going to remain whatever it was before, whether that be, you know, federally owned land, you know, state-owned land, whoever, you know, government-owned land, I should just say, just to get rid of all the nomenclature. But government-owned land, and then whatever else is there. Where you've got forests or farm fields or, you know, anything that it could be. There's lots of things that it could be, but the point is, when you have a dividing line, you have a dividing line. And although here's one. If you are building a commercial district, or if you're building an area with residential and commercial in pretty close proximity, what you're going to want to do is, you can do a couple of things, but one of the things that sticks out, and that really feels, authentic, is to have commercial development along the main roads, and then just outside of that, you have all the houses. And so you have this strip of commercial, and then around it you have houses. And I don't mean commercial, like crazy commercial. I don't mean put up a Walmart. But I'm saying you've got businesses along the road, and then just adjacent to the road, on parallel roads or roads that are coming off, hidden just behind, you've got all the houses. And that's a fairly outdated method of zoning, because it tends to encourage a lot of sprawl. But it works, and it's still seen in a lot of areas because it makes sense from the point of view of, this is how we are setting up our towns. The heavily trafficked areas are going to be the areas to get to the commercial businesses, and so we want to put them directly on the main road, but we also want to make sure the businesses are easily accessible from homes, so we'll pack as many homes as close to that area as possible, and also they'll be right off the main road, so if they've got to go somewhere, they have that main road there. You don't need to engineer separate districts for your commercial development and your residential development. You have them all packed in there, except it tends to generate a lot of neighborhoods, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but they all end up being very spread out because you're encouraging people to just sort of follow along on these main roads, these chains of main roads. And so you live just off of them instead of a concentrated area with lots of residential and then a main artery that connects it to a concentrated area with lots of commercial or industrial or anything like that. Basically how people tend to play SimCity, where you have, oh, this area is the residential and I'll build a highway from here, and this area is the commercial and I'll build a highway from here. Which, again, it does make a lot of sense to do it that way, and that sort of tends to be what city planners go for a lot, because if you think about it, it means that everything of the same type is in the same place. It means that you can pretty well expect how traffic flow is going to go on those connecting roads, because, okay, it's rush hour to work, everyone's going into the industrial area or the commercial area. It's rush hour from work, everyone's going into the residential area, but some people are going from the residential area to the commercial area because they're buying things after work. And that's fairly predictable. That's something that you can do, that's something that you can figure out, and that's something that is figured out. That's how it goes, and that's how urban development goes. But there are examples of many different kinds of things scattered throughout the country, throughout the world. Again, open your eyes, look around, maybe even take notes if you really care. And, maybe people won't if you're not an aspiring civvy. But if you want to make it right, you can go around and you can take notes, or at least you can write down, look at this area from the air and figure out what's commercial and what's residential. And that's probably what's going to help somebody, or help you, the most to get that squared away. And maybe once I do a little bit more here. Also, I'm calling it challenge completed. I got terrain pretty much up to the thing done. And I know it's a little bit of a cop-out because there are still some holes, like this one that I'm currently filling in. But I have... this is done, because it's just not showing on the map. So this whole area from Treadway Beach, which is over here, Treadway Beach, all along the waterfront, between the railroad tracks and sometimes the road, and the ocean, is pretty much done, except for one or two small points where it's not, to here. So we have that area done, and this area is mostly filled in with trees, except for the areas that are not going to be filled in with trees. And then this is area that needs to be worked on more. So this area is going to need more serious texturing, that sort of thing. And I'm still figuring out how to do that, what textures to use. Eventually we're going to have to bite the bullet and do that, but that's something for down the line. Hold on, let me fix that. Alright, there we go. Sorry, had to do something else. Also, let me take a drink. Thank you. The other thing is, here's another confounding town. Adams. Adams is very haphazard. There is pretty much no urban development in Adams. There's no planning. There are some things along the main road, and then there are some other things along back roads. It's mostly a hotel town. This is the kind of thing where I should definitely pull up some smaller towns and see what they're like, or see what they were like in the 1950s, just to get an idea of how this is shaping up. Now, the other thing is, this is very much like, it's a hippie town, basically. It is the gateway to the Volga Mountains, and people come here as, basically a stop for their camping needs and that sort of thing. And maybe I should add a couple more things along here, or move this back from there a little bit. That's actually probably what I'm going to do. Set things back from the road more. That gives it a more rustic feel sometimes, just to do that. So anyway. Oh. Looks like there's an area I forgot back here. Feels like I did this. Was it saved in a session layer or something? Did I make that mistake? Oh well, we'll have to get to that. Again, we'll blow up that bridge when we come to it. So, let's go over here for a minute. Nope. It takes a while to get between these places. Let's go over here for a minute. So we have some things, right? We have a handful of houses. Come on, load them all. The thing is, we don't have that many. It really is just a handful. And we have a few commercial buildings here, but nothing much. And I think I'm going to build another, like a farm field back here. Or, you know, a former farm field in that case. Let's see, we've got this farmhouse here. Let me set this back further. God damn it. Excuse me. This is a great way to divide up land, though. Alright, so this way. And we're not making them touch, or we're making them touch, but we're not making them, whatchamacallit? We're not making them connect. And I think we'll have like a stand of trees back here. Yeah, right there we'll have a stand of trees. You know what I want? I want a gate. Hold on. Let me get a gate of some description. Let me just do this. Because I think I'm totally gonna... Whoops. I'm not moving my mouse, guys. Okay. So we'll move... Nope, not that. I want this. There. There. So we'll do this. People like their privacy. We'll have some internal, like, dividing fences. Clear that. I don't like this house. I'll move it down here. I just don't like it in general. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna go put it over here. Like right there. Yeah, there we go. It'll get hit by the hurricane first. And so this way, make it a straight line. And we'll close this off. There we go. So we have this guy now. Alright, we need a different kind of fence. 4-track Poughkeepsie Bridge. That's not what I need. Fence. No, not that. Actually, let's see. Fence 3. Maybe this. Wait, what the hell? Oh, crap. I see what I've done. I want this. Also, a brick fence for everyone that just saw that. A brick fence is not a fence. A brick fence is a wall. That's what that's called. Yeah, that's a little bit much. Yeah, in fact, I can probably get away with this. Yeah, I can. Home, home on the range, where the deer and the antelope play. Yeah, I don't think I'm gonna put, is it sticking out at all? No, okay. And then I'll divide this up like, come on, let me do it, like so. Alright, like so. Yeah, that's good enough. What do you think they're growing? I've got no idea. The other thing is, what I think I'll do for this is actually add a couple sections of wall to make it, to make the point that there was another field over here. And this is what I'll do as well. Let me move this back. Show that once ended at the wall. And I'll surround that with some trees. Eventually. This is the kind of thing you find. You find some old farm walls. They're always hanging around. Yeah. There we go. Hold on, the other thing that I'm going to do is this, actually. Just to add a little bit more to the way this area looks. So, we have this sort of curve here, and it looks like it almost could have come off there. And the wall is sort of indicating that that was the case. So, what if I do that, just to seal the deal, and then I get a dirt road. Hold on, let's get me a dirt road. Where did I have a dirt road? Adams. I was just in Adams and I had one. Alright, let's go here. That's the station. Where's the town? Town's up here. This guy. Okay. So I'm going to add a dirt road just in front of this guy's house. It's going to connect to right there. There's going to be dirt and development all in here, probably, as this place explodes. Yeah, the other thing is I want to see houses all along both of these roads cropping up. So, and these will be, anywhere from relatively new to fairly old, or, not fairly old, but having been there at least some time. Just place that one. I don't like that. No, this is like a farmhouse. I don't need that. Yeah, this is more like it, because this is a little bit more contemporary or 50s looking. Oh, you know what? I'm going to use this dirt road again. This road doesn't get traffic, so I can just sort of sink it into the ground. Whoops. Yeah, so now I can add a couple of houses over here. That's a result of somebody wanting to face the water. Hello, stamped out subdivision. Nice to see you. Alright, let me plateau these guys so they're at the right height. That's like a loading bar. There we go. There we go. Good enough. I'm going to add another road. It's going to be right here. Oh, whoops. That's good enough. Okay. 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 I say okay many more times than is necessary, and then we move on. These are all British. Need more houses. I don't need all these street names. Storefronts are missed. I think I've used this one already in this town. No, I haven't. Oh well. That is not something I need. I don't need more commercial. At least not right now. Stone Group. Great. What is this? Oh, it's Metro North. I think that's what I meant. Yep, it is. Because I know White Plains. Oh, I know that station. Hello. Steel coil handling crane. This is the one I have. No, it's not. It's similar to the one I have up there, but not exactly the same thing. Let's see. I want more houses. Maybe I shouldn't have scrolled that quickly away from them. A lot of these seem much too old. But then again, this is a town that... Or, you know, like this one. This one seems much too new. This one seems like it'd be part of a motel or something. But this has very much got, like, the beach mentality. This is a cute house. This is relatively new. It's only a question of, okay, now we go in and see, okay, how far apart are these houses really going to be? Are they going to be, like, more than a house width apart? Because I don't think so. They're going to be, like, that far apart. Tops. Pretty sure this is the house from up. But the other thing is, they're not going to be this close to the road. You know, they're going to have front yards, so push them back. A lot of these are nice, but they're not what I want. You know, fairly nice houses, but too modern in a lot of cases. Or not, sorry, too old looking in a lot of cases. Although I'll use this gold one because I love gold. Whoops, I only want one of them though. Turn it this way. There we go. Now we got some houses. This is very reminiscent of an old neighborhood of mine. And then over here you don't have as much. Yeah. So we have a few good rows of houses now. The town doesn't seem as empty, which is a good thing. Ooh, I like this. I'll put this somewhere else. Put this, Oh. I guess past me already beat me to it, huh? Okay. Well, I'll put a second one of these houses then. Put it right here. It's so cute. I can't turn it down. Now that I've found it yet again. So, classical revival house. So this area is pretty full up. I don't think I'm going to add too many more houses to this row, except for on the other side. House cottage, house design. Oh, okay. Here are all the other houses that I was thinking of. Because these guys are actually a little bit more, what's the word? They're a little bit more varied. Some of them are kind of ridiculous, though. And this one is very small, and has much too modern a pickup truck for my liking. Or for my usage. I don't get why every single one has like a water tank. Every single one. Okay, so we got a bunch of houses along that road. Because that's zoned for residential. Aha, see how this works out? We wrap right back around. And then this area really doesn't have a lot of residential. Surprising nobody. Yeah, this is like the residential heart of town. There are not that many houses here, though. And so we'll do that. And this. And I don't know what's with the water tank. It's sort of off-putting. I kind of wish I had all these versions, but I had all these houses, but without the water tank. That's the same house. Okay. Makes me think of like, yeah, these guys are totally prepping. They're apocalypse preppers. Or doomsday preppers is the word, I guess. So this whole road is pretty much residential central. Too bad the trolley doesn't come anywhere near here. I know someone who lives in a house very similar looking to this. But this is like a duplex, isn't it? Or something. Right. Yeah, move them back from the road more. Spread them out a little more. Yeah. Okay, so, you know, we've sort of gone on this house placing spree over here. And I think we're getting to a good point. Now, the other thing is, okay, so that's what I need this area for. Now, the thing that I realized with this whole trolley terminal thing is that, or with this whole trolley network thing, is that, okay, so you've got trains dropping off here. Passenger trains back and forth are going to be pretty expensive to run, and they're only going to run every once in a while. Whereas the trams are going to be running pretty much all day. So let's grab some tram track. Let's actually get the track. Okay. You. The unfortunate thing is it's going to end up looking really awkward. Oh, wait a minute. I want to... Okay, no, I wanted to grab it. There we go. And let's make a very short, straight section here so that we can sort of get this underway. This is not a straight section either. Crap. That's a little bit frustrating. I don't know. Let's straighten that out. Okay, yeah. So we have some nice, really tight, straight sections. And then we're going to go down here. But the point is, we have to be able to pick people up from the train station. Because there are going to be several trains throughout the day that come here and stop here. And don't high tower. that. That come here and stop here and don't, what's the word? Don't have a direct connection to them. So, don't have a direct connection to the rest of the trains. Or to the trains down the valley line. So, the trolleys are supplementing that. And now, despite the fact that it is competing with the railroad is sort of, you know, maybe not okay with it, but they realize that now they can run more trains, or they can have more trains stop at, and this was a realization that happened long ago, they can have more trains stop here, and it won't really, you know, it won't hurt them necessarily, or, you know, they'll get decent passenger counts on those trains because of the fact that the trolley company is doing what they don't do in providing that connection. You know, they wouldn't necessarily make money on that connecting train because there aren't enough people for a full connecting train, but there are enough people on the train that's traveling through to begin with, and, like, you know, as you might figure, it's already scheduled. It's going through anyway, so having it stop is not a big deal. So, yeah. Oh man, this is so reminding me of locomotion. Time to get back into locomotion. I know some of you would love that. I kind of would too. I kind of would love to have the time. Oh, crud. Just apply this to everything. Wait a minute, I thought that was already at that level. What is this? Wait a minute, I'm so confused. That's what I wanted. No, this. There we go. Look at that Star of David. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do now is I'm going to replace this with invisible lever RUS. I'm pretty sure this one screwed me over before, so I'm going to go back and I'm going to grab the one from over here. Because there is one in here that I was using that was just fine. Okay, lever invisible. There we go. The Russian one was suspicious. Okay, that's good. Ah! You ruined it. Go on that side. There you go. Ah! Okay. So now we have this. And it's, you know, sort of expected that a trolley will go down there and then into town and down this way. So I could have set this up without the things, but you know, whatever. It's good. I am going to build the trolley loop in here, so I actually have to move this house. And in fact, I will probably take it out of here entirely because that is not a residential zone. Just put it over here. It's a nice little gap for it. Move this guy back. This guy back. And in fact, I'm going to bunch these guys up. It's going to look a little weird, but in the end it'll look fine. And I'm going to add... How many of these do I have? build a shotgun house? No, don't answer that. Okay. So, now things are coming along a little bit better. I very much like how this has come out. It's the first real trolley thing I think I've ever built in trains, so I'm liking the fact that it's coming along well. And I'll probably have a trolley loop here. And then, yeah, that's what I'll do. Well, okay, hold on. This is the post office, so not right there. But I'll have it come off the main road and then do a loop and then go back. So let's build that while we're here. Wrong thing, I need the train track. Yep. Okay. And I would make some portions with a single track, but the thing is, I don't feel like that's a good idea, because then I have to pick which side of the road to put it on. Oh, crap. Which side of the road to put it on, and that means if I'm running bidirectionally on that track, then there we go. If I'm running bidirectionally on that track, then I'm going to be interfering with cars, and that's not something that I want to do. And if I put it in the middle, it's going to look awkward either way. So I'll just keep with the double track. Yes, it's a little bit much, but all things considered, it's not that big of a deal. I'm thinking I could get away with a single track on this one, on this area. It's just, then if I'm making it one way, then where do I send it out? Up and around here and then down the main road? I probably could get away with that. Actually, now that I mention it. Now I'll just bring it out to here. You know what I might even do? So, streetcars are a little bit past their heyday, right? And do I really want to program this? Not really. I might even have it stop here and just have it be like this. And that'll be that. And it won't, I'll have some abandoned track over here, but the trolleys mostly just go over here for now. And if you want to pick them up, just walk across the track and pick them up over here. That would really kill them, though. I'm not sure if I want to do that. That would be a supreme act of laziness. That would be bending the universe for the sake of laziness. I'm not into that. I'd like to have that set up and working. Now, the trolleys are things that they're basically just going to be going up and down on their own without any hesitation or anything like that. Or not without hesitation, but without any control, without really much scheduling aside from an autopilot and a couple of start and stop commands, which are really probably just going to be at track marks and not like at stations or anything like that. Because that is something that I definitely don't feel like putting the effort to do. Building some trolley stations. Here, let's guide a PCC car on this corner. After we do this, I'm gonna set these to their normal orientation. That's gonna be their normal orientation. So PCC. go through very easily. I'm going to see if I can drive it around there later. Now I'm just playing with it. I just like how that looks. Whoops. As long as it doesn't clip the pole, you're all good. Okay. Anyway, enough playing around with streetcars. Let's add this. Yup. Whoops. So, that doesn't really work. Whoops. Nope. Well... I guess we'll just do this. So easy does it. I'm still worried about setting this up so that it's totally... You know, the lines obviously aren't going to be exactly right, but I'm worried about setting it up so that they're totally off kilter. Right now, they're only kind of off kilter. And if I do this right, it should come out fine. Now, part of me is doing this because I have these pretty cool single wire splines that go along with these that I'd like to use. But alas, that's not going to happen. I think we're just going to leave this as is. I don't think... You know, the only thing I can do is... Come on, just let me attach to it. Can I not? Watch, I can't attach to it. No. What the hell? Why would I not be able to attach to it? It's the wire spline for the trolley pole. Yeah, see, I can't. No. What if I just get some... You know what, I might just be able to do that. This is worth brownie points. Let me tell you. Milky, I hope you're watching. And or Mason. They're the interurban guys. Until all I hear is, you did it wrong. You can't do this. You gotta do this. Shut up. I don't want to hear it. And I mean, honestly, I know that they would be... you know, sort of, they would have extra points in them where they would be strung out, and let me, like, give me a second to do this, and then I'll add those. Why does this matter? It really doesn't. Why am I doing this to myself? I don't know. Let me put it right on the line there so that the lines would be supporting each other. Come on, just let me do it. What, are there too many spline points in this area? No, couldn't be. Nope. There you go. Eventually, just let me do it. That's good enough. I'll just leave it like that. Okay, so we've got 5 minutes left. I guess I added another trolley section that eventually I'll do. Maybe I should set up a thing to short-turn trolleys over here at Doe Cliff. Not really sure why I would, but it just feels like something that I could do. And so, yeah, we got some stuff done. We put a lot of houses in. You know, this area is finally starting to take shape. It has a little bit more form now. And I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you next week. That'd be a little bit early to end it, though, so what else to do? I know what we'll do. Let's stick around for a second. Alright, so we'll do this. We can... All I want to do is I want to take a trolley around the corner and see if it derails it. I hope it won't. I'll set the derailment physics to realistic or whatever, and just see if it breaks it. I hope it does not. But if it does, oh well. I'll have to figure something out. Maybe I can have a system where it's like crossovers and then just the wider turns or something like that. But this seems totally legit to me. I'm gonna be honest. Okay, let's swap to. So we do have a lot of automated trains now, as you are, I'm sure, aware. Including this one driven by this anime chick. Let's get a PCC car. Okay, it's already... Let's get one that isn't gray. How about a green line? As I learned, speed for the PCCs is about 30 miles an hour. Oops, I just hit E a bunch of times. Why would they have that horn? But for the turn, I would say like 10 miles an hour. Let's see how... Oh, it's not even close. Oops, I hit S. I didn't really want to hit S. I wanted to slow down and not stop. Yeah. 10 miles an hour or 5. Let's see, I can slow down to 6 or I can slow down to 4. Nice. Let's turn it around and watch it from the other direction. Or, like, watch it from the outside. And turn off these gosh darn things. There we go. That makes it better. Now, if we were in Britain, it would look like this. And then it takes off. Ah, yes. I love it. Let's spin that around. One more time. Going the right way. Get my mouse cursor out of here. Unfortunately, the trolley pole is not really near the wire, but oh well. I mean, my disbelief is shattered, my day is ruined, yada yada yada. Alright, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you next week. Train Man out.